And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, aka the Cover 3 tailgate, where we got some questions that we will answer in a little bit. But John, who was getting the conversation going about 30 minutes ago, said Chip and Tom called this up 10, and then the teams will use all of their timeouts. Yes, it was a lengthy conclusion to game number 1 of the Champions Classic. Congratulations to the Kansas Jayhawks, who improved to 3-0 overall. Michigan State falls to 2-1. That was what we had to wait through to get to the reveal of the new college football playoff selection committee rankings. For those of you who have not seen it so far, we've got our Oregon 1, Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4. Hello, Indiana, checking in at the top 5, followed by undefeated BYU at 6, Tennessee at 7, Notre Dame at 8, Miami at 9, Alabama at 10. So as they revealed the bracket on the screen, which I think we have discussed here, can be a little bit confusing. I'm on team just show me the 25. I don't know if we can petition this, as we are still working through this together. But as they did reveal the bracket, Georgia there at number 12 would be on the outside looking in, because Boise State at number 13 would be getting in as the fifth conference champion. I know we've got some thoughts deeper down the rankings, but as we join you just raw in the midst of getting number 1 Oregon 10-0 on the board, thoughts about what we have up there in the top 10?
I mean, it's kind of like last week. It looks a whole heck of a lot like the AP poll, doesn't it? Yeah. So it's just, it's 4 of the top 5 are Big Ten teams, just like the AP poll. The only SEC team in the top 5 is Texas. There are 4 SEC teams in the playoff field. Georgia is not one of them, and they were the preseason number 1. But when you go through the 25 in total, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 SEC teams ranked in the top 25. And I think that, you could point now to the Big Ten having 4 of the top 5, but the fact that those are the only 4 they have, and that the SEC has 8, kind of tells you which one's far more likely to get 5 teams in.
Yeah, that's where you look at South Carolina at 21, LSU at 22, which hold on. In the founding documents of the college football playoff, I saw head-to-head results being mentioned as one of the ways to be able to separate similar teams.
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina's record, I could be wrong, it's 6-3, right?
Yeah.
And the Louisiana State University football team has a 6-3 record as well?
Correct.
Okay. Did they play this year?
I don't know. Did they?
They did. Oh, that's interesting. So when the committee was ranking similar teams, like teams from the SEC with 6-3 records, which South Carolina and LSU both have, South Carolina gets 21 and LSU gets 22.
Huh. Crazy.
I mean, look,
I don't think it makes sense to me because South Carolina does have better losses. They lost to LSU, Alabama, and Ole Miss, whereas LSU's losses are to Alabama, A&M, and USC. So it's that USC loss kind of kills LSU's case against South Carolina because, they only beat South Carolina.
Right. I should have skipped past item number 1 head-to-head and just gone to common opponents.
Mm-hmm.
I guess wait. No, LSU beat Ole Miss and Ole Miss beat South Carolina. So LSU has the common opponents advantage too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Just making sure.
Listen, they're professionals, folks. These are very serious rankings that we should take very seriously. And when they finally come up with the final rankings, I'm sure all of these wrinkles will have been ironed out because in a system where there are 134 teams and you can only choose 12 to put in your little tournament, there are never going to be any kind of conflicts.
So funny. Okay, so no surprises up near the top?
Not really. No. I mean, it's been a pretty boring first 2 weeks of this, to be blunt. Like there really isn't any kind of shocking. The biggest surprise to me is probably that Miami is still in the top 10.
Okay.
I thought that they might drop them out, but I feel like it's probably just a thing of, well, they're still the favorite to win the ACC. So we'll just keep them in the top 10 because it doesn't really, they don't want to have like a, they probably don't want to put Boise State over Miami as far as one of the buys at this point. So they're trying to avoid doing that as possible. And, but other than that, I mean, did anything surprise you?
Well, oops, sorry, hold on. I didn't mean to pull that one up. I was just trying to grab that statement for later when we'll do a little bit more. We'll keep dropping your questions or comments in the tailgate. We'll grab them after the break with something. So I don't think I have like a grand sweeping gesture. I think I've got more like specific identification. So you asked me, I'm surprised Miami's in the top 10. I've talked a lot about how they overwhelm these committee members with their team sheets. You know, like I've seen them and it's just a lot of green and red numbers.
Mhm.
And they are mostly like efficiency numbers that are schedule adjusted and pace adjusted. And I mean, they invest in trying to be able to say that they went through and gave the committee members all they could need. But the truth of the matter is, you just need to have like a lot of green numbers or not a lot of red numbers. And I think that because Miami's offense is going to grade out as one of the best in the country, that is going to help their overall efficiency numbers. Those offensive numbers are going to look fantastic. And so they were undefeated. They are no longer undefeated. Their strength of schedule is not great. But they do have that win. I think their best wins against Louisville on the road, but you know, who's to argue?
Who put that? Like, was that a Florida fan who made that graphic? What the?
I have alleged the model having SEC bias for weeks now, but I believe that Louisville, a team that a team that is in the committee's top 25, is the best win in the eyes of the selection committee, especially with the fact they got it done on the road. So that's what I think is the committee's argument behind Miami, that they're a one-loss team with one of the best offenses in the entire country and a good road win against the top 20 team. And that's what's going to give them an advantage over falling down into that SMU category, into that Washington State category. The other one-loss teams that are behind them, SMU at 14, Washington State at 18.
Yeah. Let's see here.
Do you think before I want to get to both of those teams,
okay.
I thought some reaction to SMU at 14. Do you think SMU at 14 is off base?
No. I mean, I think that win over Pitt looked a lot better when it happened, but Pitt has been playing poorly lately, so like their stock is probably, precipitously falling in the eyes of the committee. Not a whole lot of green boxes, which, by the way, how many members of the committee do you think understand what the metrics are?
Here, let me keep making your point.
I mean, it's a similar case to Miami, whereas their best win is probably Louisville. Their loss is certainly better. It's, a 3-point loss to BYU at home compared to Miami losing to Georgia Tech. But it's also, you could point out, Miami does have that win over Florida, even if it's not their best win. The Virginia Tech win is decent. The Duke win by 22 does a lot of work for them because we don't really consider Duke to be a good team, but they are 7-3. So by the metrics, when you look at common opponents, Miami beats Duke by 22, SMU beats them by 1. So like that could be like an argument for why. Now, is that really a 5-point justification? Probably not, but you're not going to put SMU ahead of Boise, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Alabama, are you? So it's like, I don't think you got to look at the gap a little differently from that aspect, but I don't think it's terrible. I think SMU's path has been very clear the entire time. Win the ACC. And maybe if enough other teams lose and if you're 10-2 or 11-2 at that point, and your losses are to like Miami in the conference title game and a BYU team that maybe ends up undefeated and wins the Big 12, then you're going to have a very stellar case for an at-large bid, depending on what happens elsewhere. But they do need a lot to happen elsewhere because, again,
I don't think they've got opportunities left to
Mhm.
be able to make a big jump.
And they have 2 lost teams ahead of them. So, like, they need Alabama to lose again. They need Ole Miss to lose. They need, like, if you're an SMU fan, you gotta root for your team. You gotta root against Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia every week.
So to answer your question, you've got points per possession offense and defense, plays per point offense and defense, yards per point offense and defense.
Whoa. If you have points per possession, why do you need to have points per play?
I'm telling you, they're just flood you with this stuff. Relative scoring differential, scoring offense, total offense, relative total offense, rushing offense, passing offense, relative rushing and passing for both, yards per play, and then all of those same things for defense. They've got your schedule with the records of all the opponents right beside them with the W and the L and the score beside it. So you see how many wins you have against teams with a winning record, and then tons of strength of schedule situations as well.
So they pretty much use like 9 different versions of the same stat.
Yes.
Huh. Well, again, I long been a proponent of this system. I think they do brilliant work, and I don't think the process is flawed even a little bit. I think it's just gorgeous.
But I will say that even though they are flooding you with too much and they are giving you multiple versions of more or less the same statistic, you're not going to find teams that are like, you're not going to have incongruencies, right?
No.
A team that's got an efficient offense is going to be green in all of those categories. That's kind of where I try to grab like surface level to get an understanding. I don't actually break down all of those statistics for each of these teams, but I get a good idea of which ones are going to look good. And Miami is going to have green numbers for all of those offensive stats.
But again, like if you're both teams are scoring, like I said, points per drive, points per play. If both teams are scoring 4 points per drive, let's say, but one does it in 6 plays and one does it in 8, what the hell difference does it make? Why do you need to know how many points per play? I mean, what if you're up 25 in the 4th quarter and you run 10 plays just to run out the rest of the clock? That kills your points per play.
But you still win the game.
But you still this is my point. Like, they use these stats, but ask them to explain why they use these stats. Ask them to explain why these stats are important. What they show you, what they tell you about a team. I bet you most of them don't know.
This is where if Bud had finished his softball game in time, he would get in here and be like, they don't actually look at those stats, Chip. Congrats. Someone fed you a snapshot of a team sheet. They don't actually look at that stuff. They just hit the buttons based on the loss column and who they beat. And that's possible. Look, that's also possible too. Except for the 20s when it's South Carolina and LSU.
Well, we know LSU beat South Carolina, but I don't know if you noticed, Chip, South Carolina is scoring 0.75 points per play to LSU's 0.73, and we felt that was a data point that really showcased the Gamecocks' dominance over the Tigers so far this year.
Before we hit the break, what do you make of Penn State and their position at 4?
It's a very easy one to nitpick.
Yes,
because if you look at the overall resume of what Penn State has done this year, they are 8-1. Their best win as of now, I don't know what Stephen O would say in his projections, but
I'm going to say Illinois.
Yeah, it's Illinois. It's a 14-point win over Illinois. Like, they don't have a bad win. Like, their closest win so far this year is the 3-point road win against USC, which they were down. They came back. They won the game. But they are blowing teams out. And we have seen that the committee does respect the ass kicking. Like, if you're beating the hell out of teams, the committee will give you credit for it. Their loss to Ohio State, it's certainly not a bad loss to lose by a touchdown to the number 2 team in the country. So they're not going to punish you for that either. It's just, then you get into the argument of what matters more, not losing a game or beating people who aren't that great compared to an Alabama who has 2 losses but has certainly more impressive overall wins than Penn State does. But then when you look at the losses, it's like, okay, so Alabama lost to, oh God, I can't remember who Alabama lost to right off the top. Was it Georgia? Yeah. They lost to Georgia.
They beat Georgia.
No, they beat Georgia. Who did Alabama lose to besides Vandy?
Come on. They all look, they lost at Tennessee.
The SEC. Yeah, there we go. Tennessee. The SEC is just beaten. It's hard to keep track of who's lost to who. But Alabama's Tennessee loss is not as good as Penn State's loss to Ohio State, nor is the loss to Vandy anywhere near as good as the loss to Ohio State that Penn State had. So when you look at the resumes from that standpoint, if you're an Alabama fan, there's plenty of ammo you can give. Be like, well, we've beaten these teams. Penn State hasn't beaten anybody. It's like, yeah, well, you've lost to two worse teams than the only one loss that Penn State has. So it's going to be a debate that gets handled on its own. So there's really no need to get too mad about it, because Penn State will either finish the season with one loss and Alabama will finish the season with two losses. And, then you'll have a much more data points. And if Penn State still hasn't beaten anybody and they've looked kind of against Minnesota, Purdue, and Maryland, but Alabama finishes strong, they'll probably pass Penn State.
I think Tennessee, let's see, where did Tennessee land? Tennessee's down at 7. Among one-loss teams, I could see Tennessee having an argument of like, why is Penn State ahead of us? But not
really. Not when you look at they lost to Arkansas.
I don't know if you looked. Arkansas is a good loss. You know how many teams on this top 25 have lost to Arkansas?
Arkansas. Hey, they're 500 in the SEC. That's a tough loss. But I mean, no, I don't think Tennessee has a great argument over Penn State at all, because the win over Alabama, better than any win Penn State has. Nobody's going to argue otherwise. But the loss is significantly worse, and they don't have a solid second win. NC State has not held up its end of the bargain. Oklahoma has not held up its end of the bargain. And whether you want to go, Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi State. Now, if Tennessee beats Georgia this weekend, then they will be ahead of Penn State. I don't even think we have to consider the possibility. I think it would be a 100% certainty.
Yeah, Penn State's strength of schedule is better than Tennessee's right now, but it is very, very close. Tennessee's best win is better. Tennessee's loss is worse. I was trying to find another one-loss team that might be able to say, hey, I can't go past Tennessee in the rankings to find a one-loss team that can look up at Penn State and say that's fraudulent.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be as far as I go. And to your point about the ass kicking, and the committee respects them, all of their numbers are green. Like Penn State's got a top 10 offense. They got a top 10 defense. Like it's going to come out the profile is going to look very good when all of your categories are strong, when your strength of schedule is strong, when your only loss is going to be that very close game to Ohio State. I understand why they are where they are, but it's worth reminding them of what you wrote in Big Time and what you talked about on CBS Sports Network. Don't mess around and lose again. Because if you show up on the final Sunday, the one rankings release that really matters, and your best wins are Illinois and at West Virginia, then you are going to get beat out by another at-large team.
Yeah, I'll guarantee you right now, if Penn State loses another game, they won't be in the playoff.
Yeah, let's do this here. Coming up on the other side, we will show you, watching on youtube.com/cover3, the bracket, if it were set today, as well as some more of our thoughts on the new rankings release. Next. All right, so let's take a look at the bracket. If this was based on the rankings that were just released, how would you play that one out?
Are we going to do like HQ?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's play out the bracket. Ohio State beats Boise.
Okay.
Tennessee, Notre Dame. That's a tough one. That's kind of a coin flip, but I'm going to give the Vols the edge here because it's in Neyland. And I mean, I'm not going to take Riley Leonard over Nico just because I love Nico and it'll make Notre Dame fans mad. Ole Miss over Penn State. They go into Beaver Stadium, pull off the shocking upset, although it might not even be an upset. Alabama by 50 over Indiana. No, I think that game we were talking about it before the show. We were live. I think Indiana would make that competitive just because I feel like they will be able to score points on Alabama, but I am not picking Indiana to beat Alabama. And do you want me to keep going or do you want to go?
All right. So then we would have Ohio State and Miami. That's Ohio State all day, right?
Yes. Although no.
You are going to trust this Miami team after sitting on its hands until January 1st. Like a month off to be the ACC champ, the way that this is being set up. And then they're going to come in against a Buckeyes team that's already gotten a taste.
It gives Miami a time to get healthy, but at the same time, it also gives Ohio State a little more time to be healthy too. It's just, what does Ohio State's offensive line look like at that point? Because if Ohio State, and this has been my sticking point with Ohio State now for the last few weeks, when people ask me why I don't really believe Ohio State can win a national title, it's because that offensive line, even in the wins lately, has been very bad.
Yeah.
And unless that unit improves, like once you get to this format, when you're going up against a quote unquote elite team every single week, that's when that stuff really comes to bite you in the ass. Now, they got away with it against Penn State, but I've got Penn State losing to Ole Miss for a reason too. And you look at Miami, what's the strength of Miami's defense?
The front four,
okay.
The F1 package.
And how would that not be a problem for Ohio State if their offensive line is still a mess?
And
then you've also got Cam Ward.
Yeah.
Who has had a propensity to make plays all season long. He didn't make them against Georgia Tech, so it's not like he's perfect, but I don't know. It's like I feel like that defense would give them a legit shot, and then you give Cam Ward the ball, and maybe he's able to do enough to get you past it. I'm picking Ohio State, but I do not think it's near a certainty.
All right, so then Tennessee, Oregon.
Tennessee can't score enough.
And then Ole Miss over BYU.
Yeah.
From Lane can't win the big one to Lane's playing in the semifinals of the playoff. And then Alabama, Texas.
I'll take Texas, but I don't have an overtly high level of confidence right now. I need to see Texas play better down the stretch. I need like the Quinn Ewers we saw against Florida. A few more weeks of that guy, I'll feel very confident in Texas beating Alabama. But if not, I'm not so sure.
Texas's best wins are Vanderbilt and Michigan.
I know.
Strength of schedule 55. I mean, like everything else about this is great. They are 8-1. The record is good. Their metrics are all fantastic. You know, like so much about the Texas profile is amazing until you just sit there and you look at the schedule and you ask yourself, what are the best wins on this schedule?
There really aren't any.
It's Vanderbilt and Michigan, and Michigan's 5-5.
Yeah, it's not a good resume, but this is like
it's a who you play, how you play, and I am a how you play, and they have like
they've blown people out for the most part.
Yes,
like outside of the Vandy game, which Quinn Ewers was clearly, we've talked about it, he wasn't 100%. He finally looked 100% again against Florida. So, like I said, if that guy keeps showing up week in and week out, they blow out the next two teams on their schedule, and then they beat Texas A&M, because for them to be the number 2 seed at the end of this, they have to win out. So then they go to the SEC championship and they clearly beat whoever they're playing there, who is another good team. So at that point, I've got a lot more faith in Texas than I do at this moment.
Yeah. Okay. So what did we have at that point? That would be Texas against Ole Miss.
Texas.
And then Ohio
Oregon
State
versus Ohio State.
Again for the third time.
The trifecta. Yeah. I think Oregon would beat them again.
Okay. So would you have you think Oregon could go? Oregon is side conversation, unrelated to this activity. Oregon's not going to go 3-0 against Ohio State in one football season, are they?
They can.
Because of the flaws of Ohio State, or because of your confidence in the strength of the Ducks?
Both. Because of that offensive line, and because I think Oregon is a very good football team.
So then Texas against Ole Miss.
Oh, I've got Texas winning that. So it's Texas versus Oregon for the national title.
Yeah. Who you got?
Oregon.
Go Ducks.
Go Ducks.
Sco Ducks.
Scout Ducks.
Okay. SMU 14. All right. What happens if Washington State wins out?
They're going to go to a great bowl game. They have, listen.
I know.
Let me I'll be Bud here for a minute. What benefit does the playoff get from putting Washington State in it? They don't belong to a conference. They have absolutely no ties to anybody in power as far as when it comes to the college football playoff. They don't give a crap about what fans want. They don't give a crap about what these teams have done. They're going to serve their conferences. That's who created this thing. That's who's in it. So if Washington State wins out, is 11-1, and is Pac-12 champion or Pac-2 champion, their best win at that point will still be, I don't know. Who? Fresno,
Texas Tech.
Washington, Texas Tech.
Yeah, Texas
and
Tech.
Your loss, you played Boise, the team that's in the playoff, and you lost to them by 21. So they're not going to put them in. They gain nothing by doing it. They don't get television ratings because there's a reason Washington State didn't find a new home. And again, I'm not saying it's fair. I'm just saying this is what the reality of the situation is. Wazoo didn't find a conference because nobody saw they were attractive enough. The college football playoff looks at Wazoo and is not going to think is attractive enough to give them a spot in their playoff, which is all about television ratings and money.
SMU has a better chance of getting an at-large bid than Washington State does.
Yes, by far.
Like if SMU gets to the ACC championship game but loses, they've got a better chance as a second ACC team.
Yeah.
Can Boise State make it without winning the Mountain West?
No, because that means they've lost another game.
That would open the door for Army or Tulane.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the only 3 G5 teams that we realistically can say will be in are Boise, Army, and Tulane. Because Colorado State, if they end up winning the Mountain West, is not getting in.
Sean in the tailgate says, why Indiana and BYU jump Tennessee this week?
Because Indiana added another respectful win over Michigan. BYU added another respectful win over BYU or Utah. I don't know. Like, I was going to bring this up before the break. We were talking about Penn State, where they are ranked compared to other one-loss teams. The teams that have a genuine beef with being ranked behind Penn State are Indiana and BYU.
Yeah.
Because you want to look at their best wins. BYU's got better wins, and it has no losses. Indiana's wins, you could argue Illinois is better than anybody Indiana's beat, but Indiana has no losses, and they have blown just about everybody out. So those are the 2 teams with genuine beef. They should be ranked higher.
I think that they have been moved up out of respect for the loss column.
Mm-hmm.
This is the second time they've done it. The first time they were probably like, Michigan's going to beat them. Like, oh yeah, we'll see. Like, we'll wait until they go on the road to Salt Lake City to see what happens there. But that's a very good point there about the Penn State, Indiana, BYU dynamic. All right. SEC is almost guaranteed 4 teams. Big Ten looks to be 4 teams. Best races to watch are the Big 12 and the ACC. Clemson is still in the hunt. Do you think Clemson is still in the hunt?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, South Carolina's ranked now.
I don't think Clemson is still in the hunt for an at-large.
No, they have to win the ACC, I think. But still, if they'll have an at-large case if they finish with 2 losses and don't get to the ACC championship, because South Carolina's ranked. So it gives them a chance for another resume win. Also, I agree with KTK that the SEC is not – disagree, I'm sorry. They're not almost guaranteed 4 teams. The SEC is guaranteed 4 teams because the way that the math works out with the schedule that's remaining, there's almost no scenario in which they won't have enough 2-loss teams to get a spot. And even a 3-loss team of theirs will have an argument in most likely cases. The Big Ten, I do not think is guaranteed 4 teams, as we discussed earlier. Yeah, I think there's, like, to go to the comment, there's a greater chance the SEC gets 5 in than 3.
Clemson's path to the ACC championship game is Miami's downfall.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think that will happen.
Can't rule it out, though.
But you can't rule it out. That would
Especially with
sad.
all the mean things Kevin Clark's been tweeting about the Bears today. Can't rule out Miami falling apart down the stretch, and I won't rule it out because I will have my vengeance.
He bottled up that Georgia Tech frustration and he unleashed it on the Chicago Bears.
Oh yeah, Kevin's lashing out. It's sad to see.
It is sad, He's grown so much. I didn't think he would revert to that, but pain challenges us all. I understand. All right, anything else before we get out of here? Any other comments?
No, I look forward to next week when these are back earlier.
Yeah.
Instead of between the two games. And also Toledo, please just keep your foot on the gas, man. Don't make me sweat this fourth quarter out.
Yeah. And hey, South Carolina, Missouri play each other. So
playoff game. It is a playoff game.
One's got to go.
Mm-hmm.
One's got to go. And you can't. Oh, sorry. Let's actually tell you what we're doing coming up. So Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Come join us. YouTube.com/cover3. Big game breakdown. We'll be taking a look at that Tennessee-Georgia game, which is Georgia's last shot to play their way into the playoff. If Tuesday night is to be believed, and so much more from the Week 12 slate. Then Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, we'll be giving you our locks for Week 12, where you might hear what I am dubbing as the stinky ass principle. I'll explain more on Thursday. Then Saturday, we will go live 11:30 p.m. Eastern time to break down everything from a very, very busy week in college football. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fernell. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Remember, kids, all games matter.